Hello, everybody. Today is Tuesday. It's March 18th, 2025, and you're here with Robin at In the Family Way Coaching. We are here for our daily Bible reading. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you are listening on your favorite podcast or whether you are watching by video on YouTube or Spotify or on my site or through TikTok. Thank you so much for joining me. We are reading through the entire Bible this year, and we're using the Day by Day Kids Bible, which is written by Karen Henley. If you've been here for a little bit, you know what time it is. It's time for our sticker. We're going to pull out our calendars and we're going to put that sticker on because you're about to hear the Bible today. I am going to be a little bit quick. I have been very busy this morning and it's now afternoon and I have only one shift, but I am perpetually with too much to do and not enough time to do it. I may have already said on here, I know I've mentioned it other places, but I cannot remember if I said it here, that I simply don't have time for a job. I have so many things to do, and I just barely can seem to make it there. So I am going to head into today's reading, and today we're going to be reading from 2 Samuel chapter 15 and 16 and Psalm number 3. We are picking up with David, and David, in our last reading of yesterday, has reconciled to the point where he is at least seeing his son Absalom. And I'm going to give us a little bit of recap that God has told him through Nathan, the prophet, that there will always be fighting in his family. So today we're going to see some more of that. In our first section of chapter 15 of 2 Samuel, this is entitled, Absalom Takes Over. Now time passed, and Absalom bought a beautiful chariot and got horses. He got 50 men to run ahead of him wherever he went. Absalom would get up early every morning, and he would go to the road that led to the city gate, and there he'd stand. People would come into the city to see the king, and some of them would have a problem. They would want to ask the king about it. He could tell them what to do. Now Absalom would meet them at the gate, and he'd call to these men, "Where are you from?" They would tell him, and then he'd say, "I know that you are right, but there is no one in the city to judge this case. Who will make me the judge? I'll make sure that everyone is treated right." So people came to Absalom. They'd start to bow to him, but he'd shake their hand and kiss them. That's how he treated everyone who came to see the king, and so all the people loved Absalom. So now 4 years went by, and one day Absalom went to see King David. "I made a promise when I lived far away," Absalom said. "I asked God to bring me back to Jerusalem. I promised that I would worship God in Hebron." "Then go," said King David. So Absalom went to Hebron. But he sent men with a secret message to all the people. It said that they were to listen for horns to blow. Then they were to call out, "Absalom is the king in Hebron!" Absalom asked 200 men from Jerusalem to come with him, but they didn't know what was going on. Now David had a special helper, and this man helped David to make wise decisions. Absalom asked this man to come with him. So more and more people were on his side. One day a man brought a message to King David. It said, "God's people are following Absalom." Then David called together the leaders in Jerusalem. "Let's go," he said. "We have to leave. If we don't, we won't get away from Absalom. He will come after us, he will kill us and everyone in the city." "We're ready," said the leaders. "We'll do whatever you want." So King David left Jerusalem. He took his family with him. All the people followed. Everyone in the country cried as they saw them passing by. They crossed a valley and headed toward the desert. The priests came too, and they carried God's ark box. They set it down. A priest offered gifts to God on an altar there. And all the while, people were leaving Jerusalem. King David told one of the priests, "Take God's ark back into the city. God may be kind to me. Then he will bring me back to see his ark box again. But maybe God is not happy with me. Then he can do whatever he wants with me." So David told the priest to take his son with him, and he said to take another priest and his son too. David said, "I'll be at the river crossing in the desert. You can let me know what's happening." So the two priests took the ark box and their sons, and they went back into Jerusalem. David went up Olive Mountain. He was crying as he went. He had covered his head, and he didn't wear any shoes. All the people covered their heads too, and they all cried. Now somebody told David, "Your special helper is with Absalom." So David prayed, "Make my helper tell Absalom the wrong things." David came to the top of the mountain. People used to worship God there. David's friend Hushai met him there, and Hushai had torn his own clothes. He had put dust on his head. David said, "Go back to the city and tell Absalom you'll serve him. You can work against my helper who is now with my son. He will tell Absalom what to do, but you can make his ideas sound like they're no good." "The priests with the ark box are in the city too," said David. "Tell them the news you hear at the palace, and then they will send their sons to tell me what is going on." So David's friend Hushai went back to Jerusalem, and he got there just as Absalom arrived. 2 Samuel chapter 16 and Psalm 3. This section is entitled, "Throwing Rocks at the King." David went on. Soon he saw Mephibosheth's servant. He was waiting for David. He had a line of donkeys with him, and they carried a big load. They had 200 loaves of bread, they had 100 raisin cakes, and 100 fig cakes. There was also a bag of wine. "Why did you bring these things?" asked David. "So your family can ride on the donkeys," said the servant. "The people can eat the bread and cakes, and the wine is for them to drink in the desert." "Where is Mephibosheth?" asked David. "Oh, he stayed back in Jerusalem," said the servant. "He thinks he will get back the kingdom from his grandfather Saul." "Then you can have everything that belonged to him," said David. "I bow to you," said the servant. "I want you to be happy with me." Now David and the people came close to a town. A man from Saul's family came out from the town, and he yelled bad things about David. He threw rocks at David and the guards around him. "Get out of here," called the man. "You're a killer. You're good for nothing. God is paying you back for killing Saul's family. God is giving your kingdom to Absalom. God is getting rid of you." And one of David's army leaders spoke to David. "This man is as good as a dead dog. Why let him talk to you like that? Let me go take off his head." "You and I don't think alike," said David. "What if God has told him to say that? Then who am I to stop him?" Then David talked to all his leaders. "My own son is trying to kill me," he said. "I'm sure that this man is too. But leave him alone. Let him say bad things. Maybe God has told him to. God will see how sad I am. Then maybe he will pay it back with good things. He may do it because this man is saying bad things." So David and the people kept on going. The man from Saul's family was on the hill across the way. He kept saying bad things and kept throwing rocks. He even threw dirt at them. At last, the king and his people got to where they were going. They were very tired, so they stopped to rest. And David wrote, "Many people are against me, God. They say, 'God will not save him.' But you are like my guard. You lift me up. I call out loud to God and he answers me. I can lie down and sleep, and I know I will wake up again because God keeps me safe. I will not be afraid even if 10,000 people are against me. Come, save me, God. All this time, Absalom and his men were in Jerusalem. The man who had been David's special helper was there too. Then Hushai, David's friend, went in to see Absalom, and he was doing just what David told him to do. I hope King Absalom lives a long time, said Hushai. Are you turning against your friend David? Asked Absalom. Why didn't you go with him? Oh, I'll stay with the one God chose, said Hushai. I'll stay with the one all the people chose. I'll be your servant. And that's the end of our reading today. So there is a lot going on. David attempted to reconcile a bit with Absalom, and now he is taking over. And you see how he laid his plans out over a time. He started to what we would call schmoozing the people as he was going up to the gate. And instead of having the people bow to him as being the prince, he was talking to them like he was one of them and kissing them and shaking their hand. And he was being like a politician we might see today. He was trying to make it seem like he was just like everybody else. But he was making plans against David. And what we see with David is he is accepting the things that God is sending his way, but he is trying to do little things. He did pray that his wise helper would give bad advice, and we'll see about that tomorrow. And he is sending people to tell him what to do. But when it came to people insulting him, he accepted that maybe this is what God had for him. And so he was submitting. So again, we see in our daily application that David was submitting and waiting to see what God's plan was. That if it was God's plan, he would be kind to him. And if it was God's plan that he'd be removed, that he was going to be removed. And he was just waiting to see what God's plan was. David seems awfully good at waiting to see what God plans to do and submitting to whatever circumstances God puts him through. And we've seen that when he was running away from Saul. One thing I wanted to point out while he was doing that is when the man was insulting him from Saul's family. He was making false accusations, first of all, saying that he killed Saul and that he killed Saul's family. And David never had a hand in that, did he? So he was saying untrue things about David. And even though those things were untrue, David did not dispute them. Can you think of somebody else that we have seen that happen to? Jesus. That is exactly what happened to Jesus when he was falsely accused. He didn't sit there and argue with the people. He accepted what he was to go through. He didn't argue about it. And he didn't fight back. And David was not fighting back either. And one of the things that David said when his soldier wanted to kill the man who was saying bad things about him and throwing rocks, David said, "We do not think alike. You do not think like me." And in the same way, we are not supposed to think like the world, are we? We are supposed to have the mind of Christ. So that's our New Testament parallel as well. And we remember that Jesus is from the line of David. So it makes sense that David would be a little bit like Jesus and have some of these qualities. And that's why we say David had a heart for God, is that he was looking to do the right thing. He wasn't perfect. He definitely made mistakes, but he showed a lot of characteristics that God loved about him. And so that's our daily application too, is that we are not to have the mind of the world, but our mind is supposed to be transformed. And Jesus does that. And that's a wonderful thing, to not be stuck having to think like the world, and to remember that we are not supposed to be of the world. We are simply in the world. And that's our daily application for today too. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that you feel that God has lit your light and given you some things to think about with today's reading. I hope that you are finding that there is daily application in every single day, including today. And if you feel that that is the case, please click that like button. It looks like a thumbs up or a heart. And together we will light up the world with Jesus and to shine the light to Him so that more people can hear about this event so that they also will be encouraged to read His Word. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for spreading the word about reading God's Word. And I will see everybody here again tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everyone.